my name's Collin Jones. I'm one of the Rutherford County Game Wardens here in Rutherford County. I have a partner, his name's Ethan Davis. He wasn't able to be here today. We've got two here in Rutherford. Most of our counties just have one, but we do have two here. So I graduated from the University of Tennessee in 2018, hired on with the agency in 2020. Been here for 3.5 years. I started in East Tennessee in Johnson County, transferred to Cannon County in the summer of 22, and then shortly thereafter transferred here to Rutherford. I've been in Rutherford since 2001. So when I moved here from Texas, so been here for most of my life. So as an example of the duties that we do with the agency, so we patrol an assigned area, mine's Rutherford County, but we are also considered state police, so we can go outside of or go to any county in the state or anywhere in the state and enforce our laws. We do boating inspections, hunting, fishing, littering, and pollution law violations, check hunting and fishing licenses, and inspect vehicles for possession of illegal game, apprehend and arrest violators for wildlife laws, collect and preserve evidence. We serve as a state witness in court, collect and prepare wildlife research data using techniques such as browse surveys. We also do, I don't know if any of y'all follow our agency on social media. Earlier this week, we had several officers up on Old Hickory doing nesting surveys for wood ducks. We put out several wood duck boxes, and so they were last year, and so they were going through checking those to see how many were used, if they were used and had eggs and had a hatch, and kind of just what all the data was on that. So that was with students out of Tennessee Tech. So that'd be something that we'll probably be doing for the next several years, just kind of looking at the productivity up on Old Hickory. Do wildlife call counts. So it's like that's usually for bobwhite quail. We also participate in the turkey surveys that we do every spring, just to see how many poults with hens that we see just as we're out doing our normal duties. Field bag checks, aging and collecting parts of harvested animals, present wildlife conservation educational programs and civic clubs. When we go to NWTF, we've got a booth there every year, have several officers that work that. I know we had some officers at SCI that was in Nashville this year as well.
Do you want to say what NWTF
Yeah.
is for anybody non-hunters in here?
National Wild Turkey Federation. So for the Southeast region, they do a convention at Opryland every year. I don't know how long they've been doing it. They've been doing it there as long as I can remember. But that's for kind of the Southeast region. Have a bunch of vendors come. So we have a booth set up so we can present and answer any questions that the public may have. Sportsmen's Association, school programs, teach hunting and boating safety education classes. There's a hunter ed class and a boater ed class for your boating license that are both required for everybody. For boating to drive a boat, if you're born after January 1st of 1969, I believe, you have to take a boating class. It's just like your driver's license, but for a boat. And then for hunter ed, I believe it's maybe 1967, January 1st of 1967. Everybody born after that date has to have hunter ed as well.
And that's transferable if you have one from another state, though, right?
It is, yep. So the boating license and hunter ed are both it's a nationwide program for both of them. So they're good no matter where you are in the U.S. at least. And then we operate a variety of different equipment, including vehicles, boats, ATVs, firearms, cameras, and two-way radios. So for our agency, we require a 4-year degree in wildlife biology or wildlife fisheries management. That's what in Tennessee we've got UTK or University of Tennessee Knoxville, Tennessee Tech, and University of Tennessee Martin. They all offer a wildlife fisheries management program. That's what our agency kind of prefers, but any wildlife or biology degree qualifies you to apply. So we're one of the few states that still offer the 4-year specific degree. There's some states that don't offer, don't require a degree at all, but we and some that have just require a 4-year degree in general. Like I said, we're one of the few that still require the specific wildlife or biology related degree for us. So as far as our training, once you are hired, we have a 22-week academy that we do ourselves. We used to go to Toledo, the Police Officers Academy in Nashville, but we started, I think, 5 years ago. We started our own academy, so we do all of our training in-house now. Like I said, that's 22 weeks, and then we do job-specific training there. EVOC, which is emergency vehicle operation, so learn how to drive in when we're running our sirens and stuff, and then firearms, SSGT, which is defensive tactics, ATV, go over general law, water survival, so that if we're ever in a situation where we're on boats a lot, especially in the winter, how to if you're thrown in the water, how to manage that and get out of it. Boat accident investigation, BUI enforcement, and instructor development. And then once we're out of the academy, you go into a 30-week field training officer program where you're in the county that you work and you're training with the sergeants and other officers in your district, learning more on the job training and kind of you're getting out in the field and doing those checks and stuff like that. So some of our provided equipment, we are assigned a truck. A lot of us have ATVs and boats that are assigned to our specific positions. Our uniforms, this is our field uniform. We have a dress uniform that we wear for court and other special events. Firearms, laptops, cell phone. Most of us now have night vision. We're starting to get more thermal devices that we're able to purchase. Traps, binoculars, and radios. So outreach and education. We do youth events, Wounded Warrior Project, hunter and boater education classes, sports show, like I mentioned, the NWTF, and media and TV, newspaper, radio. We do several interviews with Channel 2 and Channel 4 here in the summer about boating. If we have a major boat accident, a lot of times they'll come and we'll have to do kind of on-the-spot interviews for those. It's not always the most fun, but we do it. As far as wildlife management, we handle injured wildlife calls. We're lucky here in Rutherford County. We've got a good relationship with the county sheriff's office. So a lot of the injured deer calls and stuff that come in, they're able to help us with that most of the time. But we do handle that. Landowner assistance, whether it comes from damage to their crops or other property, from deer here, for big game mainly, but deer here in East Tennessee. Bears are a big issue when it comes to getting in garbage and crop damage as well. In certain areas, we do still have some wild hog here, so we deal with that. But it's just other general landowner assistance. If people are having issues with raccoons or whatever it is, getting into their chicken coop, we help out with that as much as we can. Trapping nuisance wildlife, we some of our officers, I'm trying to kind of get into. We've got several officers that are really good at trapping and really help out when it comes to. A lot of times, it's mainly beavers. Is one of our biggest issues we have, and then, like I said, the wildlife surveys. We'll use thermal imaging in the summer to do deer surveys. Deer, white-tailed deer, the bucks in the summer, their antlers are in velvet, and there's actually blood flow going into those antlers. So when you are using thermal to scan the field, you can actually, those antlers will glow with that thermal, so you can see which ones are bucks and which ones are does. And then in the summer, or towards the end of the summer, that velvet comes off and that turns into hard bone. In the winter, during the winter time when they have the hard antler, it doesn't show up as well on the thermal because it doesn't have that blood flow in it. In certain areas in West Tennessee and a little bit on the plateau, we do hog eradication. So we've got traps that we can set up, and they have this door right here is usually set with has a remote trigger device, and so we'll have a camera on that trap, and so that we can watch, and when we see that the whole sounder, or as many as we can, are in that trap, we can drop the door electronically, and then come in the next morning when daylight, so you can see, and it's safer, and take care of those hogs.
On that, do we have any hogs close to Rutherford County here?
We get calls every now and then of people seeing hogs. There's not a population that I'm aware of. I don't think at all in Middle Tennessee that I'm aware of. As far as on the law enforcement side, we are the only agency in Tennessee that can enforce our boating laws. Well, we're the only agency that can enforce our wildlife fishing and boating laws. So that's Title 69 and Title 70 for in the TCAs. The 69 is our boating laws, and the 70 is all of our wildlife and fishing laws. So we do BUI enforcement. That's one of our biggest areas of concern. Just like DUI on driving a car, you can get the same thing with the BUI, and now the penalties are the same for DUI and BUI. If you get arrested for BUI, it doesn't affect the driving side of it as far as driving a vehicle, but the penalty is still the same as far as the fines and jail time. And then obviously, if we go into second and third offense, it goes up from there as well. We do vessel safety checks, so that's just making sure that you have all the required safety equipment on your boat. So you have to have a life jacket for every person on board. You don't have to be wearing it unless you are under 13 years old. But you do have to have a life jacket for everybody on board, a fire extinguisher, and depending on the size of the boat, if it's over 16 feet, you have to have a Type 4 throwables, like a square cushion, or just the generic like ring like you see on a bigger boat, like the life preserver, and then a sound producing device as well. That could be an air horn, a whistle, just whatever you like as far as that goes. And then boat accident investigations. So that's another big thing that we have to deal with. We actually had a call last night of a possible missing person and boat accident, but it ended up not being one, which was good. But we investigate all boat accidents that are reported. And it is, if you are in a boat accident, no matter how minor the damage is, you're required by law to report that to us. And also we help with Homeland Security as well. That mainly focuses on our the dams that we have on all of our reservoirs, and then the ports that we have in Tennessee as far as the shipping ports that we've got. Going back to the BUI enforcement, this past summer, our district which is the northern half of Middle Tennessee, our district had, I believe it was 59 BUIs this last summer. It was the most in the state and the most that I think any district has made ever. And that was just between Old Hickory Lake and Percy Creek Lake. I think there was 39 that were made on Old Hickory, and then 20-ish that were made on Percy Creek. So so that's one of our big things that we focus on, because it is so dangerous. A boat's not like a car where you can stop. You got a brake where you can stop. A boat, it does have forward and reverse, but there's no brake. So and when you add alcohol into things, it can get dangerous. On the wildlife side, we enforce all of our wildlife laws, whether it's hunting over bait, illegal take, hunting from the road, spotlighting, over possession limit or bag limit for fish. As that middle picture with all those fish, I imagine I'm not sure what fish those are, but we've got some certain species have certain size limits and bag limits for how many you can keep every day. That bottom picture, that's one of our deer that we use for hunting from the road, to catch people that are hunting from the road. It's been nicknamed by hunters as Timex, because we do have some, a lot of them have a motor in the head where we can turn the head and flip the tail. So we've got certain ways we have to set it up. It can't be, we're not allowed to use what's considered a trophy class deer. So it usually has kind of moderate antlers on it. We don't put giant 200-inch antlers on it. So again, for wildlife enforcement, we use everything we can to catch violators, whether it's sitting and waiting and watching with binos, drone footage. That might be a camera from a dam. It's from the dam as well. We did a detail last summer at Old Hickory, below Old Hickory Dam, and we had a couple officers in the inside the dam watching the cameras, trying to catch people snagging and stuff that's illegal. Just more pictures. Paddlefish is a big one, especially right now. It's going to be coming up on that season. People will snag for them, which is legal, but there's certain areas you can have to be a certain distance below Old Hickory Dam, which is one of the popular places here to do it. So they'll be snagging too close to the dam. Also, you can't cull, which is if you catch a fish and it's not as big as you like, you can't throw it back when it comes to paddlefish, because you are using a big hook usually to snag them, and so a lot of times they might be injured more than they will be able to survive. Also, we've made large cases in the past with paddlefish when it comes to selling their the eggs as caviar. There was the largest case I can think of, I can't remember when it was probably 10 or 15 years ago, but it actually had ties with the Russian mafia here in Tennessee. They were catching it, selling it as I think sturgeon caviar, and shipping it back to Russia. Deer enforcement in the fall is one of our again, we've got different seasons. Like right now, we're kind of in our fishing time. Weather's getting nice. A lot of people are out there fishing. Crappie are about to start turning on, so we'll have a lot of people out catching crappie. Keeping too many or keeping crappie that are too small. This spring, here in about a month, we'll get into turkey season, and then in the summer, we're usually solely doing boating enforcement. And then as we get into the fall, into deer season, we'll go transition back more deer enforcement. So we work spotlighting, so we'll get permission from landowners, sit in their field, wait for somebody to come by, and if we see them trying to light the field, we'll make a traffic stop on them. Deer that are killed illegally, whether it's from the road or hunting over bait, and people killing them without a license. I know We've had some they'll kill a deer out of state, bring it back to Tennessee, check it in here in Tennessee because they didn't have that out of state license, and kind of vice versa. They'll kill a deer here and go and check it in out of state. So we just use all of our tools that we have to try and catch violators, and a lot of times it's the public that are helping us make the majority of our cases. Like I said, there's just two of us here in Rutherford County. We can't be everywhere all the time. So the public, y'all calling in, if y'all see somebody, spotlighting or shooting from the road, that really helps us out. I think that's kind of about it. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so not too long ago, we go to West Tennessee a lot, camping and boating and everything, or East Tennessee rather. But not too long ago, there was a black bear hit and killed right on 231.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not. I'm used to it, so I'm not. I wouldn't say it's scary. Like I said, I started in East Tennessee in Johnson County. Dealt with a lot of bears, so their population is increasing. The one that came through this past summer, he came from the plateau and moved over here and made a big loop. Almost got to Nashville and came through southern Murfreesboro. But I think those encounters are just going to be increasing as time goes on, because like I said, their population is doing good. At one point, we had bears all across Tennessee. So they're doing what bears do.
So that was one bear?
Mm-hmm.
You know that y'all tracked him and it was one bear. He didn't bring all his friends with him. Okay.
It'd be cool if it did.
No, that was just one. And usually when there's one that does that, it's usually a young male. So he's going out. With black bears, the cubs stay with their mother, the sow, for a year and a half to 2 years, and then she'll kick them out. And so females will be able to stay close, but if it's a male, she'll run him off so that he's not there to potentially reproduce with the sibling. And so he'll have to go out and find new territory. So that's most likely what happened with that one. He was a young 2.5, 3-year-old bear, just trying to go find some new territory, and found Middle Tennessee with no other bears to be around and a bunch of cars and interstates. But yes, sir.
So you talked about the voting under the influence, and that's kind of self-explanatory. Everybody knows what a DUI is and how that can segue into voting offense, and how they made the law similar with respect to a DUI and voting under the influence, because it used to not be the same. It used to
Correct.
have much less restrictive penalties for voting. But when it comes to fishing, or when it comes to violating some sort of gaming law, talk about penalties there, because I think a lot of people don't understand that some of the penalties can be pretty harsh, especially on like illegal taking or possessing or taking things across state line and tagging it differently. I know some of this because I do this type of work on the defense side, and I've represented hunters in the past, and you can lose your gun, you can lose your hunting privileges, it could be a misdemeanor, a felony that can carry jail time and extensive sentences. So have you dealt with any of that or had to deal with that yet?
Yeah, so for us, if you're caught hunting over bait, we usually will seize whatever weapon you're using, and then when that goes to court, usually we'll kind of most of the time we'll just ask that weapon be deemed as contraband based off because of the violation. But if they're using their grandfather's passed down rifle and they really would like to keep that, we can go with revoking their hunting privileges for a year usually. So we've got, you can, with all of our laws, you can lose your hunting or fishing privileges for a first offense is usually just a year. You can lose whatever weapon or items you're using to take whatever game it is. So for fishing, we usually don't seize fishing poles, but in something like a commercial fishing violation, we may seize a boat or all their fishing equipment in that instance. But there's whatever you're using to illegally take whatever game it is, you can lose that equipment.
I have a few questions.
Okay.
The first one is, do you have to have a license to hunt on private property?
On private property, yes. If it is property that you own and you are listed as the landowner, then you do not need a license. When you go to check, you still have to check your, when it comes for a big game, you still have to check your deer or turkey in. And we've got a tab that just says listed as, for the license holder, just select a landowner, and then you'll have to put in your map and parcel number. But yes.
So if it's, say, family owned, like a parent and a grandchild,
Mhm.
and a grandchild hunts on that family property, does that not qualify?
Yes, until that grandchild is 16. Once they turn 16, they're required to have a license.
Okay.
But as far as parent and kid or children, they can hunt on that land as landowner as well.
Okay.
Without
So if
a license.
If I hunt on my property and I kill a deer, I don't have to have a license?
No, ma'am. But you still have to check it in.
Correct, correct. And is there a limit?
Yes. So as of right now, it may change before this fall, but current deer regulations are it's 3 deer a day or 3 does a day in our unit, which are Unit L, and then it's 2 bucks statewide. So you can kill your 2 bucks on your land or anywhere in the state, but that's a statewide.
Right. How much is a lifetime membership hunting?
So we have it's tiered based off of your age. So right now for a I can't remember if it's 13 or 16, till you're 52, I think it's around $1,900. I think from 0 to 3 years, it's around $300, and then like I said, it goes up from there up to $1,900. And I think once you turn 52 is the first step down, and then once you turn either 62 or 65, it goes down drastically to $50.
One more question. Has there been a recent change in your ability to go on private property in instances that you need to investigate something?
Yes, so as of right now, we're waiting on the agency has an appeal in the appeals court. We're waiting to get a ruling on that appeal. But as of right now, we cannot go onto private property unless we have landowner permission. We have been given direction from the AG's office that if we see a violation actively occurring on private property, we can go and address that violation. But when it comes to such as the baiting laws in Tennessee, whereas we could go onto property that we believe hunting was taking place and find that bait, we're not able to do that at this time.
That's kind of a downfall for you guys.
It is. Because the one thing with wildlife is all of the wildlife in the state, we view it as it belongs to the state and it belongs to the people of the state. So just because this said deer is on your property, you don't have, unless you have a high fence, but most people don't have a high fence. That deer can go to your neighbor, it can go to your neighbor's neighbor, it can go wherever it wants. So that deer is not just your deer because it's on your property. So that really hinders us as far as us being able to enforce our laws. Yeah.
My question is Senator Harris. I grew up in a small town, Oakland, Tennessee. We lived on a farm, and we let people hunt on it. Now I live on a farm in Murfreesboro. There's deer everywhere. And I was going to ask, I don't hunt, but I see them every day. And a lot of my friends, fraternity brothers, want to come hunt out there. They ask me, can they come hunt? So if it's family-owned property, if we wanted to allow them to hunt, what do we need to do to make sure we're not in violation for somebody coming out on the property to hunt on the land?
So technically, they're required to have the appropriate license for whatever they're hunting and whatever they're using to hunt with. But as far as you, the only thing that you would have to give them is technically have to have written landowner permission, just saying that you, the landowner, gives Billy Bob permission to hunt on your property, and that's
They're responsible for checking in.
yes, yeah, they're responsible for whatever they harvest, check it in, have the appropriate license. That wouldn't come back on you if they did.
Or I'll walk you through when you let me hunt on your property.
And the other thing, what in my hometown again, it was beaver everywhere, deer. If someone was to hit a deer with their vehicle, and that vehicle, that deer didn't make it, did you check that deer in as well?
No.
Oh, you know, but could you take it home and keep?
You can. You just have to call us. The way the TCA is written is you can actually call any law enforcement agency, and they can issue you a roadkill tag for that deer. I just had an instance last week that they called the county, and the county called me saying they don't know what to do. But you just have to call us, and we'll usually just try and get a picture of it just to make sure there's not a bullet hole in it. And we'll give you a number just so that if you do take it to a processor or something and you want to keep it, it's documented.
Tear a car, each one of my brother's car up.
Yep.
One more question.
So a real quick comment and then a question. So I grew up hunting, and the one thing I hated hunting with my father were turkeys because I would hear them, but I never saw them to get a shot off. I used to live in Riverbend. They own Riverbend. And I'm assuming that is because people do not hunt turkeys anymore. Is why we're seeing, I never saw them growing up. And now they're everywhere in Riverbend.
Is Riverbend off of Haynes?
It's off Thompson.
Thompson,
Haynes,
Thompson.
yeah.
Yep. So we're actually have plans to trap in your neighborhood here soon. Hopefully, if the weather can cooperate.
Well, I moved just because of the turkey. No.
So we have. It's not that they're not being hunted. It's that we're developing more and more of their land.
Sure.
So being in that Riverbend subdivision, I used to live off of DeJarnett by the airport, and we had turkeys come through our yard all the time. The airport has had issues. State Farm, when they used to be there, would have issues with turkeys coming up and pecking cars. This saw the reflection. It's not, you are, by law, you are allowed to hunt inside city limits with whatever weapon is legal. So you can hunt in downtown Murfreesboro if you have property with a rifle. It may not be safe, but by law, you are allowed to do that. So although the city has an ordinance against firearms, a city ordinance doesn't trump your state right to hunt. But that being said, it's really hard to hunt inside the city limits. So that's just the issue.
Real quick question. Was it chronic wasting disease in the deer population? Have we seen that in Tennessee?
Yes. So it has been confirmed in West Tennessee, and there's been, I think it was Lewis County down in southern middle Tennessee. We had a positive this fall. But as far as in our area, we have not had a positive. Yeah.
You know, you do the deer count, if they get over a certain number, you all go out and eradicate the deer.
Yes and no. It's not that they get over. It's not that it's necessarily a specific number. So one thing we have with landowners is we can issue a depredation permit. So if you own cropland, or just if you own land and you're having an issue with deer damaging your property, your crops, we can issue a permit to where you can thin out that herd. I know there at when I was at UT, that some of the county officers there in Knox County would help the UT Arboretum, thin deer out there. So in specific cases, we may come in. Also, we did that at Seven Island State Park. In specific cases, we may come in and shoot deer ourselves, but we try and encourage the public to take care of that. Whether you being the landowner, allowing people to come in and hunt on your property in the fall during deer season, or just issuing those depredation permits where we can help manage the population.
Bill, last question.
Yeah.
If you have to follow the seasons if you're on your own property and that sort of thing.
Yes.
You got to stay with the seasons.
Mhm.
Okay.
How y'all controlling that wildlife downtown Nashville on Broad Street?
That's a different kind of wildlife.
Thank you.
Okay, that's fine, Brady.
Colin's gonna hang around for after this, so y'all can ask him some more specific questions. But you hit a lot of the highlights, things that I was interested in.